Hello, I am the Script Doctor and welcome to the channel. This week's episode of Lower Decks surprisingly has some strong structure to its plot with Mariner compared to the previous episodes. But when it comes to the rest of the Lower Decks team, the writer pretty much phones it in. First, Tendi makes an artificial dog. Why? Just because. No real reason. Nothing of interest other than just to do it, which I find to be a huge missed opportunity, because Tendi making this dog could be used as a way for her to better integrate with the crew and understand her human friends. She mentions later in the episode that dogs don't exist on Orion, and we know from previous episodes that she doesn't have many friends on the ship, so there is a foundation here for Tendi to make an effort to socialize with the rest of the crew. What is unfortunate is that because Tendi genetically engineered this dog herself, it doesn't have all the traits of a real dog, but rather traits similar to the Alien and John Carpenter's The Thing. This direction is based on the premise of making man's best friend into an ironic nightmare. The premise could work, I suppose, but I just think going the obvious horror route is a little too common. And as a writer, when you're coming up with ideas, your goal is to try and think what the average writer would do and not do that so you can bring something new to the concept. With writing, even if you make it in the industry, you are still competing with everyone else, so you need to set yourself apart from said competition. But when I see a genetically engineered dog made by an alien on Star Trek, I can believe that 1,000 different writers in Hollywood would come up with the same idea of making it have strange deformities and nightmarish traits. It's the easy joke. It takes little effort to execute. Rarely would I think that a writer would make the dog have embellished or exaggerated traits compared to normal dogs, some that would inconvenience or annoy the Lower Decks team. Like for instance marking its territory all over the ship, finding a loose power cable and playing a tug of war with it, or hanging out in the mess hall and using its cuteness to get treats from the crew. Maybe have T'Ana fall for the dog and want to keep it as her pet. Since T'Ana is characterized as a grumpy doctor, have the dog bring out a lot of lovely emotions from her. Expand that relationship by having the dog be possessive of T'Ana, and any time another officer or patient gets near her, the dog growls. I mean, if you're going to introduce a dog character to your episode, try actually using it in your episode. Making it a background story is such a waste. That's one of my suggestions. What are your ideas for how to use a dog in Lower Decks? Draw from your own unique experience of having a pet. Share them in the comments and upvote your favorites. Getting back to the show, the slightly more significant subplot pertains to Boimler and is instigated with Rutherford trying to increase the speed of a transporter. Why is he doing this? Because the script said so. Because of his experiment, it causes Boimler to be out of phase and emit a loud humming noise. But we'll get to that a little later. The main plot of this episode is a complete misunderstanding of the two-part Next Generation episode, Chain of Command. In Lower Decks, the captain and her senior crew are sent on a covert gardening mission, and another captain has come aboard as a substitute. Except this would not be needed as there should be a command structure in place for events of this type. When you compare this to Chain of Command, Captain Picard is transferred off the Enterprise as a political move, so Starfleet can claim plausible deniability if he is captured. He is also selected for his experience with Theta Band carrier waves. Jellicoe isn't transferred to the Enterprise as a substitute, but because of his successful experience negotiating with Cardassians. Each captain serves a purpose with their duty assignments. Here on Lower Decks, we get none of that. It's treated more like a classroom than a command. Mariner is upset by this change until she is reunited with her old friend from the Academy named Ramsey, who is filling in as captain. As the two catch up in the captain's ready room, Ramsey offers Mariner the job of first officer while she's in command. Mariner accepts the job, and as the two friends embrace, we get to see worry in Mariner's eyes. Captain Ramsey leads Mariner and her original team on an away mission to repair a water filter for a friendly species. Mariner is constantly screwing up during the mission by first going the wrong way, then forgetting to bring the tricorders to the surface. I find it a little odd that an away team would assign all of the crew's tricorders to one individual. It is also my understanding from many other Trek shows that the majority of the officers on an away mission are responsible for bringing their own tricorders and gear. Why was that not the case here? Because this was a contrived way to highlight that Mariner is not capable of the responsibilities she's been assigned. However, an astute audience will know that this is out of character for her and that Mariner is behaving this way deliberately. While the rest of the team take care of the the issue, Mariner is looking less competent and as a result is embarrassing Ramsay in front of her team. What we discover in the second part of Mariner's story is that she is deliberately behaving this way to prevent Ramsay from offering her a job aboard her ship when she returns. Mariner has no interest in ranking up until she sorts things out while on the lower decks. As for what those things are, we don't know, nor do we get a taste of what those things will be, but I suspect that may be answered as we get closer to the season's end. What we do get with Mariner in her story are a few attempts at gags with her triggering a red alert and failing to operate her EVA suit. There is a side mission where a ship they're supposed to rendezvous with is shut down because they somehow caught an alien being that absorbs electricity and destroys the ship, leaving behind the jellyfish alien we first saw in Encounter at Farpoint. But aside from it being a backdrop for Ramsay to call out Mariner for acting out of character, that's all it really is. No real jokes, no exploration of the concept, no attempt at trying to figure out what the alien is and how to save it and the ship. How it all ends is with Mariner asking Rutherford to upgrade the transporter so they can beam everyone off the ship at once, which I didn't think would be an issue for this time period in Star Trek, as there are multiple transporters on a ship and they can use them all to beam a massive area all at once. Scotty beamed up to humpback whales and the water in Star Trek IV. Why does Rutherford need to alter the transporter to beam the surviving members of this other ship, especially if they can all fit in the same transporter room? Rutherford's experiment was to beam people faster, not more at the same time. These two ideas don't connect, but they forced them anyway because the writers wanted to make them out of phase like Boimler as an attempt at a punchline. Boimler's out of phase story is about as hollow and transparent as he is in this episode. Apparently, Dr. T'Ana has no idea how to fix Boimler, so she's alerted a special medical team to take Boimler to the farm for unsolvable illnesses. This farm is some form of paradise, where he will be pampered until the doctors can find out what is wrong and fix him. At the same time, Tendi is going as well with her dog because the dog is, well, weird, and the writers think it's best to pair Boimler and Tendi for this part of the episode. The medical ship arrives through a space storm to pick up our freaks and take them to the farm. They are greeted by the Division 14 medical specialist, who is an Edosian, a species introduced in the original animated series. He is deliberately creepy with a raspy voice and a sinister laugh. Everything about this Division 14 is designed to make you question, doubt, and fear what will happen to those who've survived horrible accidents while working in Starfleet. There's one character in particular who is aging in two different chronological directions. One half is growing older while the other half is growing younger. According to his story, he's been on this ship for months and declares that this is the farm and that Starfleet is hiding them away from the rest of the galaxy. He uses this angle to stage a mutiny, which Boimler quickly alerts the division head. The division head subverts the mutiny and informs them all that Boimler told him about it so they would beat him up. They throw Boimler in an airlock ready to vent him into space when Boimler is suddenly back in full phase and no longer a freak. They open the airlock anyway and Boimler falls onto a grassy field that leads to a beautiful resort. It turns out no one was lied to regarding the farm and that they're all going to get pampered and treated for their ailments. The division head apologizes for all the mix-up and states that in the future he'll brighten up the ship. Because Boimler is no longer sick, he's kicked off the planet and returns to the Cerritos with Tendi. Tendi says her goodbyes to the dog, which can talk and fly because I suspect someone on a lot of narcotics writing the show thought that to be funny. When Boimler returns to the ship to see Rutherford about getting out of phase again, Rutherford is surprised that Boimler is back to normal. Yet the entire crew that was beamed out earlier was out of phase and they are back to normal in the mess hall. So why the surprise? There are a few things to bring up with Boimler's subplot. Why is there a separate division to address the unsolvable illnesses? Isn't that one of the main objectives of Starfleet? To seek out the unknown? Go where no man has gone before? Why have this entire program? And on top of that, why have these passengers with medical issues be ferried for months? These are Starfleet officers with unsolvable illnesses. Is there not an urgency to get them the care they need on this planet? Would there not be multiple ships dispatched constantly with full medical staff to put officers in stasis and monitor their health? But what really bothers me about this subplot is how it makes the medical staff in Starfleet look. The existence of this place suggests that their chief medical officers aren't capable of solving strange new problems. They have to resort to a literal resort for patients they don't want to deal with. Where's the problem solving? Where's the urgency or ambition? Could you imagine McCoy during the Naked Time telling his entire crew that he can't cure them and they have to wait for a Division 14 ship to pick them all up? This is supposed to be a comedic take on Star Trek, and yet you set up an officer that is out of phase and instead of doing something with that, You ship him off to be another person's problem. Really? Think of the fun things you could do with this. You could have Boimler able to pass through bulkheads or drop through floors. Maybe cross that over with the dog storyline, and with my suggestion of the dog being obsessively loyal to Anna, every time she tries to examine Boimler, the dog attacks, but just passes through Boimler. Or find the engineering department taking advantage of Boimler being out of phase and have him conduct work on the ship in hard-to-fit spaces. Maybe have him make a positive impact with the crew because of his usefulness, and when he starts to phase back to normal, he tries to get out of phase again so he can be the popular officer on deck. They have this rather fruitful situation for Boimler and literally don't do anything with it. It begs the question, why bother? If the goal was to get Boimler off the ship, just put him on an away mission. The writers didn't do anything with this premise of Division 14, or the transport ship, or Mariner's storyline with Ramsey. So this episode was just filler, which was really a huge waste. And referring to Lower Decks as a huge waste is a rather appropriate description for this show. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have anything to add to this episode, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and never forget, it all starts with the script.